E41 Marketplace Ministries. It's all about your business, and it's all about our Father's business. It's ministry outside the box. No matter what your role is in the business world, E41 Ministries is a special place where we can walk worthy of the vocation wherewith we are called, just as Ephesians 4:1 commands us. In today's busy and frenetic world, it's a blessing to know that God has a plan to bring hope, comfort, and peace through Marketplace Ministry. The E41 Marketplace Ministry of the Fellowship, it's a kingdom-building business. I'm Kerry Fink with E41 TV. And E41 TV is an outreach of E41 Marketplace Ministries, which itself is an outreach of the Fellowship in Dallas, Texas. And I'm Kerry Fink. So what we're going to do today is we have the privilege of interviewing and visiting with the founder and the person who sort of came up with the concept that now is the time for Marketplace Ministry to drive forward. His name is Dr. Dave Robinson, and we are lucky and fortunate to be here on location in Mesquite, Texas. We're just outside, or actually we're inside, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We're here at the beautiful Family Cathedral Church here in Mesquite, Texas, and we've been having the privilege of being part of the first E41 Marketplace Ministers Conference that's been going on here now for several days. And it's been a time where people both who are full-time working with the church directly and also the people who are full-time in ministry in terms of being very active in the church but also in their own marketplace on a Monday through Friday basis the rest of the week, have all come together to get some equipping, some training, some insight into what E41 Marketplace Ministries is all about. And if you're not familiar where the name E41 comes from, that's from Ephesians chapter 4 verse 1, which is walk worthy in the vocation to wherewith ye are called. And it's really about taking what we learn on Sunday in a church environment from our pastors, from our own studies, all the things that we do to improve ourselves in the Word, and then really making that a benefit to the people that we are called to speak to in the marketplace. So with that, let me welcome you, Dr. Dave Robinson, and thank you for taking some time to be with us. How do you think it's been going with the conference? I think it's been incredible.
Thank you, Kerry. Yeah, it's been an outstanding time together with Pastor Harry Sewell and his staff and the great people here at Family Cathedral. Even though it's our first conference, we've been working on this now for about 10 years.
Right.
And so I think it's going great.
Yeah, the attendance has been quite good, and it's been very interesting to hear the testimonies of people who are not only some people, this is confirmation of what they've already sort of intuitively understood their position to be, and for others it's like a release, like now I feel like I can roll forward. I know what my assignment is now. And so you've really encouraged a lot of people in that direction. It's been interesting to hear some of the testimonies. One of the things that I thought was very insightful is that the leadership of the church here is very much, I would say, very much cutting edge, because they recognize the potential of empowering their congregation to take what they're learning through their participation in the church here, but to really apply it on a practical level out there. That's not always what you find when you're out there, though, is it?
I wish it was, but I have found that it's not. Pastor Sewell, who spent a lot of years in the marketplace, has a very strong apostolic gift to his leadership, is certainly on the cutting edge. And even though he may not have framed it just the way we have prior to us coming, but he certainly understands marketplace ministry, and a lot of his people are already involved. And I'm just simply here to kind of put some structure to it, and also to affirm some great people doing some great things in this marketplace.
And you're coming up with really maybe encapsulating or putting a name to something that people have sort of intuitively felt, has really come out of your own experience of having many years experience in the business world and many years of experience as in the ministry world as a minister, and also that you have decades of experience and you travel the world talking to church leaders, and you're coaching, you're mentoring, you're helping them develop their teams and things like that. How did you see the need for this coming up?
When I was ready to walk away from the RV dealership we had in 2005. I spent some time with the Lord in my study, and I was reading, as I often like to do, all four Gospels in one setting. It's like four guys show up at a fire and they all have a little different perspective on what they see. And I was taken this particular morning with Mark's passion for evangelism, with Matthew's passion for discipleship and making disciples of all nations. And I came across in Matthew 20, verse 6, the story that Jesus was telling about the man who went out at the 3rd hour, the 6th hour, the 9th hour, and again at the 11th hour, and said, "Why are you standing all day idle in the marketplace?" And that ended up to being about a 6 or 7 hour conversation with the Lord that day, and out of it came the book, the first book I wrote, Idle in the Marketplace at the 11th Hour, because I saw the need to translate the power and the energy that so many churches have on Sunday morning to the marketplace Monday through Saturday. And so that book really defines pretty well, how this has come together over, well, now going on 10 years.
I want to comment about that. This book, Idle in the Marketplace, is really, you've had the table back there where people have come out of the sessions and they've been very, very interested in what's a good place, what's a good place for me to begin. I want to walk further in this. I'm encouraged, I'm enthusiastic. And so this seems to be the book that they're really interested in, from the standpoint that this kind of gives them the why as to the importance of what we're doing with this. Can you talk a little bit about what people will get out of this book? And I want to also let you know that this book, you can visit E41Ministries.com, and there are links to take you right over so you can acquire this. I think there's an ebook edition if you want to have it on your Kindle. I think you can also buy a print copy, etc. And you'll find a lot of wisdom in here. But tell us a little bit about what are the things that people will expect to find in this book.
Primarily, they're going to be exposed to the idea that every nation, every region, every city is controlled by three entities. The business community that pays for everything. There are people that, whether they know it or not, God has gifted them to create wealth, according to Genesis. So they pay for everything. Then the second entity is the government, where people pass the laws and regulations that control the people. And then there's the educational institutions, especially at the university level, where they determine the values and philosophies that both the business people and the government people operate with. I have a quote in there from the Humanist Manifesto, written in 1933, which has really become the doctrinal statement for the secular humanists, which America now is really struggling with, as all of Western Europe and other places around the world. But I give you practical application on how you can become an effective marketplace minister, that you have a real calling. You're not a lay person. You are actually a called minister of God. You have a role to play in extending this kingdom, because the battle that we see today raging, as it's been since time began, is the battle between the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. So this book, for lack of a better term, could be a workable strategy that the church can implement in every location, anywhere in the world, in getting into those three entities, allowing God's favor to elevate them to where now we have righteous people in places of influence.
Yeah, there was a comment that you made along the way in the conference that really speaks to that. You had mentioned that something to the effect of that people say, well, you can't legislate morality, but that happens all the time. Would you? I think that's such an important saying as it pertains to everything, with the whole motive behind E41, or the whole hope of E41.
Sure. Morality gets legislated every day. It's just a matter of whose value system is going to legislate that morality. And so a lot of the cultural skirmishes we have on the fringes of society today are really over whose value system is going to win. And the church's value system has been under attack. It's not just Christianity, though. It's been under attack. The kingdom of darkness, the enemy, has tried to kill Christianity from the beginning, and he hasn't been able to do that. But he has gained a foothold in places because Christians have allowed their value system to be pushed out. And we need to get our value system back in the place where now it's the Christian value system that's going to legislate whose morality is going to reign supreme, both in the schools, education, business, and government.
You know, one of the things that's so true about that is when you have all these, it seems like you have a very, very vocal minority who says, well, this is way things should be, or this, you know, if you do it this way, this offends me. I don't want to see the 10 Commandments here because I'm offended. I don't want you to have the nativity out because somehow that hurts me. And so you have this very vocal minority who ends up creating a changed reality for the vast majority of people. And it really does seem like there's this vast sea of people who are kind of like rudderless ships. You know, if you don't have a rudder, any wave is going to get you where you think you're going. And a lot of times people perish for the lack of truth. And we live in a society where not necessarily can you talk about Jesus or the hope that he brings in a school environment, in a government office, or even sometimes in a corporate office. And so with that in mind, isn't that one of the reasons why it's so important for Marketplace ministers to really take a lead in these areas?
You're exactly right, Kerry. It's not the institutional church that should be legislating. You know, it's been tried in other countries. Institutional churches and organizations have tried to determine the landscape of the political world through all kinds of means. But I don't believe Jesus wanted that to be the model. You know, I understand pluralism and that everyone should have a voice. And but I believe at the end of the day, it's whose kingdom voice is going to determine what happens. And so when this country was founded, it wasn't founded by an institutional church. It was founded by individuals who had the kingdom of God's value systems. They lived it out every day. That's why it showed throughout our society. Well, the enemy decided to try to get in. He got a foothold, and in the 30s and 40s, it really blossomed, and the church backed off to accommodate them, and now we have the result that we do. We just can't allow that to happen anymore. Otherwise, we're going to lose out to the other kingdom. So it's not institutions that you know, should determine policy. It's the fabric of society itself by individuals whose value system wins out at the end of the day.
You know, that is really an important thing to consider, because in today's world, we have so many people who complain. So, well, we know something doesn't feel right. You know, this isn't going the right direction. Is America in a decline? You know, all these different things that are out there. And yet, one of the things that seems to be a beacon of hope in everything that you're talking about as it pertains to the advantages of a marketplace ministry is that it really empowers the people to really, on a grassroots level, make a difference.
They're going to make a difference one way or the other. You know, you hear so much in America about separation of church and state. They're talking about organizations.
Right.
And I believe there should be a separation. There is a separation. But it's, you put 10 people in a room and 7 of them have the kingdom values of the Creator God, and 3 have values of the other kingdom. And when you take the vote, there's no question. It's not an institution. You just simply have the numbers to control the outcome. That's why Marketplace is so important. It's not about the organized church going in and having a voice and having marches and as the organized institution. No, it's just flood the market as they did in the early church. I mean, I think it's Acts 17 where it says, those that have turned the world upside down have come here also. It wasn't the organized church in Jerusalem that turned the world upside down. It was the people out of that church that just simply went in to areas of influence and turned it upside down.
No, and that's important. And part of the reason I think that we've had this discussion before, part of the reason that the whole E41 concept and approach to marketplace ministry kind of formulated for you is because of your years of teaching experience and traveling around the world, working with church leaders in particular, and then trying to empower the people that they are connected with in the churches. And I want to take just a minute and also talk a little bit about some of the what you do as a coach, as a mentor, as an instructor. Tell us a little bit about, you're on the road 250 days a year. What is that all about?
Well, when I walked away from the RV dealership in 2005, I asked the Lord what He wanted me to do at this point in my life. And He said, I want you to become a leadership coach to both the church leaders and marketplace leaders. And I said, you know, the church world really doesn't understand a whole lot about what a coach does. Marketplace people, they've had this for 25, 30 years. And He said, well, you teach them, you explain to them. So what I do is try to help leaders see their vision come true. And everything rises and falls on leadership. And so there are leaders who create the future, and there are leaders who manage the present. There are two kinds of leaders. Everyone's a leader through the influence. In the marketplace, you're either leading people closer to Christ or further away by how you live out there. In the church world, you're either leading people closer to the vision or further away from the vision of your particular church by how you behave when you're there. And so I coach leaders by asking them basically 3 questions. That's where we start. What do you want? Define it for me. Don't write me a book, just define it. And then question number 2 is, what do you have? Don't spin it. There's not a right or wrong answer. It is what it is. I say all the time, unless you're willing to be brutally honest with present reality, you're not ready to move to the future, whether it's tomorrow or 5 years from now. But it is what it is. And the third question is, what strategy or action plan do you have to close the gap between what you want and what you have? And then based on your response to those, then that's where the coaching starts.
And you've been doing this for so many years. I want to take a minute and talk about some of the different materials. Your website for what you do in the coaching side, and there's a link on the E41ministries.com website, but directly, it's coachingforministers.com?
Correct.
Coachingforministers.com, and that's the number 4, written coachingforministers.com. And there is a tremendous amount of information about really what you do about empowering different ministries and churches around the world. You've written a number of books. You can find out more about these, but I'd like to just take a minute and have you just say a word or two about each book. This is, you can find this book also on the E41ministries.com website. There's a link directly through, so you can get your copy and get 50 leadership keys that work. Tell us a little bit about this book and who this is appropriate for and what they might get from it.
That book came out of my monthly leadership articles. I do a monthly e-leadership article that's free. You can go on my website and sign up for it. And right now I send it directly to around 800 people, but it gets forwarded. The last count I heard, there's about 45,000 people on average a month that read it in, I think, about 30 nations. And so people ask me, do you have any of the back issues? And so I put 50 of them in a book, and that's what that one is 50 leadership keys that came from the monthly articles.
Okay, very good. And I think also you invite people to, if they're interested, they can get on your mailing list, right? And get copies of newsletters and things?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they can go on my website and ask for them, and I'll be glad to send them.
Good. Here's another one that is also very appropriate for leaders. It's called 100 Leadership Nuggets. Can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yeah, I post fairly often on Facebook and Twitter. And again, people ask me, you know, do you have something in book form? So I took 100 of the leadership posts and put them in that book, but there are 3 more volumes that are coming. I want to have 365 leadership nuggets, one for each day, and then also in that 4th volume there'll be a summary then of leadership principles. But yeah, you can follow me on Facebook, just David Paul Robinson, and on Twitter. I'll post some things on there as well.
Good.
So that's where that one came from.
And this is a unique item here. This is this is actually a thumb drive, and you described this as actually having sort of a master's degree, almost the equivalent of one, on a thumb drive. What will somebody find here?
When I began to coach almost 10 years ago now, I began to see a pattern of challenges in every leadership situation, and so I created a library. I have over 80 sessions and PowerPoints, and I took what I call C4M's top 40 and put them on the thumb drive. There are 40 different sessions on leadership, everything from what a leader ought to know to what are the 7 traits of great leaders, and the list goes on and on. But there are 40 sessions there, about 35 hours probably of leadership material that I've created. And if you're a leader, whether it's a lemonade stand on the corner or General Motors, there are things in here that I think you would find beneficial to your leadership challenges. Okay,
and again, you can find out information about all of these items by going to E41ministries.com or directly to Dave's leadership website, which is coaching4ministers.com, and that's the number 4 in the middle, coaching4ministers.com. So there is a lot that's going on in terms of bringing this level of teaching and empowerment to both the church leaders and the people that are actively interested and involved in getting the kingdom, the good news about the kingdom out. What kind of advice would you have for somebody who is maybe, they literally are employed, it's their full-time paid, that's how they pay their power bill, they work at the church? What would you advise them to do? What's a good step in their development?
Are you talking about church leaders?
I'm talking about a church leader, somebody who is working full-time in ministry as a paid person in the ministry.
In addition to what I call the hatch, match, and dispatch ministry, which is part of what we do in the church world. We dedicate babies, we do weddings, and then you know what dispatch is. We send them home to glory when it's their time. We encourage people. We, you know, you're there to respond to people. It's what I call watching the radar. Whatever's on that radar on any given day, you never know, and you respond to that. That's part of church life. But I would encourage church leaders to go beyond that. And if you really are called by God to lead a local church, then you need to create some things that get on that radar on purpose. And you do that through apostolic leadership. And you need to be intentional and understand the real assignment in Ephesians 4:11-16, where God gave some to be apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, and evangelists for equipping the saints. What saints? Ephesians 4:1 saints, for the work of the ministry. Now, what we do in the church building and around that campus is what I call church work. That prepares us to do the work of the church in the marketplace.
Yes.
Make sure you keep a balance between doing church work and the work of the church.
That's very good. That's wise advice. Now let's turn it and talk about somebody who perceives themselves as a marketplace minister. They may not be, quote, drawing a paycheck, so to speak, from their church work, but they're vitally interested in doing all they can to help the church. They feel like they want to play an active role, but they make their living in the marketplace. What do you say to them? What's the next step they should take?
Well, two things. One, don't take your church family and your pastor and those who are over you, according to Hebrews 13, in the Lord. We're to honor them, love them, salute them, obey them. That word, you know, that a lot of people struggle with, obey them. I mean, that doesn't mean they're your master, but they are your pastor, and they're to be honored, and
Respected,
they're there to help you. You're to serve your church family. When I was growing up in the home and I got to about 11, 12 years of age, my dad said, David, it's time for you to begin to contribute around here. So it's not about just going to church and taking up space on a pew. It's about going there to serve your church family. We need to do that. But we also need to understand that our real ministry and calling is out in the marketplace. And it begins with what I call, Kerry, being sensitive to what's going on around you in the spirit world, not just in the natural world. So I encourage people, take a little yellow sticky note, put it up on your mirror or your doorpost where you can see it, and simply pray that every day, Lord, help me be sensitive to those you're going to put in my life today. And then if you do that, I can guarantee you that 30 days later, you're going to begin to sense divine appointments almost on a daily basis. And then just simply respond as the Holy Spirit would have you respond. We've made ministry in the marketplace either too intimidating or we just forget it altogether. But I really believe that if we'll do that, God will help us and guide us. And all that we learn and get when we come together to celebrate as a church family will be even more powerful when we go to the marketplace Monday through Saturday.
That's a great place to close this show. What a good way to think about it. So thank you, Dave, for being with us here today, and thank you for joining us today on E41 TV. And may God bless you.